I wanted to build this airtight product requirements document. So for those who still use that or are old enough to remember PRDs before stories, I built a 100-page PRD for an intranet in 2006. And, thank you. We got into the requirements review session, and the engineer within 10 minutes said, "What about this?" That was actually my second cigarette. It's like, great. But what I learned through that experience was you have to bring your team along for the journey. I think it's really important, and honestly, this is a recent learning for me, is that the conversation is more important than the actual document.
You need real leadership. You've got to double down on the new direction that you're taking. Being vague, being indecisive is just going to confuse people. You also have to be extremely communicative. You need to provide reassurances and give updates at least daily on the transitions that you're making and how they are happening and how they affect everybody on the team. And also giving people a voice as well too in that process so that they can feel that ownership. Again, that powerlessness needs to be able to be reduced. And then you need to make moves that are quick and sharp. So don't hesitate. You have to step boldly into the new future and start re-identifying yourself as this new product, this new purpose-driven business that didn't exist before. So what does it mean to be a great product leader during a pivot? Well, first of all, you want to prevent the team from setting unnecessary constraints. So I think for a long time while we were evaluating our pivot, we really wanted to hold on to some elements of our original curriculum. And once we realized that we didn't have to do that, it opened up a lot more possibilities for us. So as a product leader, really make sure that you are looking at all the opportunities for you to really expand what you could possibly do. Secondly, you want to provide insights from data analysis and running rapid product experiments about what could be possible for the future. And finally, you want to be a strong connector, bringing people together around this new vision. It's going to take a lot, and you're one of the best people as a linchpin of the organization to bring them together.
Just because you can't always see your audience does not mean they don't exist. And it always struck me when he practiced in an empty room, in an empty stage, he always kept the customer front and center. And in my product career, I think about all the decisions we make from conference rooms, from meetings, without recognizing who we are solving a problem for. To perfect your performance, you have to show up ready to perform. Second piece he made. Remember that if you don't practice, the birds eventually stop believing. And it struck me in a very different tone, because I used to wonder, why is he practicing at 4 a.m., at 2 p.m., at 8 p.m. every single day? When he had a show, he even practiced on the days they did not have a show to match the times when he had the shows. This was his way of testing and validating and gathering enough evidence that at the time when he needs to perform, the product will work. Because the birds knew this is the time to come out. They understood what that call was for them.
So here's the cool thing that I want to share with you. There's a paradox inherent in imposter syndrome, and I call this the imposter syndrome paradox. So when you're feeling imposter syndrome, this is what I recommend. That you think of this. You will only experience imposter syndrome when you're competent and skilled. Like, if you need to tattoo this on your forearm, whatever you need to do. But remember this, this helps me all the time. Personally, whenever I'm having imposter syndrome, I go, wait a minute, this means I can do it, right? And then I move on. So remember this for imposter syndrome. Also, if you've never seen the Expert Enough Manifesto, Hide the hints and go find it on the internet. It is the bomb. It'll really help you to realize that you don't have to be like this super supreme, I know everything about all of it person.
I bring this up because back where you work, there are probably talent teams that are scouring the globe, especially now that a lot of companies are remote, for diverse candidates, people who probably don't look like you. And with good reason. Too many of the teams that we work in do not include diversity of gender, race, ability, neurological makeup, and so on as part of the criteria for people joining. And as a result, we are designing and building features, products that have a narrow, stunted view of what is normal, what is typical in society. This is bad for business, it's bad for society, and it's bad for our future. And I'm raising this because if you're hearing me today and you don't believe that increasing meaningful participation of diverse groups in the products that we make, in the product processes that we use, then you're not paying attention to what the world needs from us as people in the tech industry. And I'll say there are two choices. You can either go and get educated on these ideas so that you can catch up to the conversation that we're having today, or you can get out of the way so that we can get on with creating better products in a better world.
Teams have gone on for, years not prioritizing emotional intelligence overtly and done just fine, right? Technical excellence, the ability to do your job well, heads down, this is what I'm doing, can take you a long way. In fact, we know of companies, Apple is a famous one, where the leader, in this case, Steve Jobs, stood out as someone who was an intelligent, almost genius level innovator, but who led from a place of authority versus like that deep empathy. And that was fine. Were some people hurt under his leadership? Possibly, but it didn't fundamentally alter things for that company. So I suppose that's good news. However, I believe that there's more bad news, to be honest, given how life is short and, my philosophy that we spend so much time at work, we might as well try and have a good time while we're doing it. So for me, the bad news is that when you have too many exceptional superstars on the team who all lack emotional intelligence or have low emotional intelligence, or perhaps one person has it and everybody else kind of doesn't, the negative downstream effects that could possibly impact product development and the process of product development are myriad. So I'm going to talk to you about a few that I've observed, 4 to be exact. So the first is lack of trust. If you're on a team or you're witnessing a team not have any emotional intelligence, what you might see is that people have a hard time trusting the opinions of their colleagues. You could see it manifest in meetings. You could see it manifest in shared documentation where there isn't a healthy skepticism. It's just I'm cutting you off. I'm assuming bad intent immediately. And it becomes really, really difficult for people who have unique ideas, maybe dissenting points of views, to feel comfortable sharing. And so what you might start to see is like silence and a lot of yes, head nods, which is not indicative of like a good conversational debate, healthy debate culture, but one that might be ripe with fear or lack of trust. The second is poor communication, which makes sense. Because if you have lack of trust, then important information might be withheld, right? There might be a situation where certain individuals on the team are like, well, nobody's going to make a different decision anyway. I tried sharing this in the meeting and got shut down and it doesn't feel good. So I'll just hold on to this. And so it's a protective measure, but what ends up happening is that communication is stunted, not transparent. And when it does happen, it's sort of like an agreeable kind of communication. The third is lower performance. And, over time, if you don't have great communication, you don't trust your partners or stakeholders, confidence, morale, all of these things start to slowly wane, leading to lower levels of commitment to get the work done. Work may even begin to feel like a ginormous chore because you don't trust your teammates, credibility is low, and there are folks within the team whose voices start to feel and whose hearts start to feel marginalized. and spirits start to feel kind of disenfranchised. And so why share, right? I'm just a worker bee. And then the last, which is a company level downstream negative effect, is productivity, profit, losses start to ensue. Because if you have all of these negative conditions in the mix, it could be extremely destabilizing for a team because there's just lack of divergent thought. And the contributions to conversations inside of each phase of the product development process become 40% truthful and open instead of 100%.